Teenager accused of murdering 3 children in Southport is charged with production of the deadly poison ricin. Axel Ruda Cubana is accused of the fatal stabbing of these.
The Israeli parliament votes to ban the UN aid agency working with Palestinian refugees, drawing international concern. NATO confirms that North Korean troops have been deployed to Russia and are likely operating against Ukraine. And Donald Trump faces backlash after a comedian at his New York rally calls Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Now, the NATO military alliance has confirmed that North Korean troops are supporting Russian fighters in Ukraine. In the U.S., the Pentagon estimates that some 10,000 troops have been deployed to eastern Russia. Intelligence from South Korea suggests that North Korean soldiers are in the Kursk region. That's where Ukraine has an advantage with its current counteroffensive. Moscow has not confirmed or denied those reports. It's thought that in exchange for Kim Jong-un's help, Russian President Vladimir Putin will send Pyongyang military technology and help North Korea evade sanctions imposed by Western countries. In response, the U.S. says it will not impose limits on Ukraine's use of American weapons if North Korea joins the fight. That announcement follows pleas from Ukraine to lift restrictions on long-range missile strikes. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said that Russia also received ballistic missiles and millions of ammunition rounds from North Korea, and he called it a serious escalation and dangerous expansion to the war in Ukraine.
Good morning. Our headlines today. Ahead of tomorrow's budget, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves confirms the NHS will get the funding needed to deliver an extra 40,000 appointments each week and new equipment.
The biggest capital budget since 2010 in our National Health Service to invest in the new scanners, the diagnostic equipment, the radiography equipment that our NHS desperately needs.
Good morning. What would the Bank of Dave do with the budget? Dave Fishwick takes us on a tour of his hometown, Burnley, to hear what people and businesses there want to hear from the Chancellor.
International concern over aid to Gaza after Israel's parliament votes to limit the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency's operations.
Teenagers leaving care need more support. A national charity says it's a postcode lottery when it comes to starting an independent life.
The man behind the pen for the children's favourite The Gruffalo shares his technique and his new project.
A man has died while being detained at Brookhouse Immigration Removal Centre near Gatwick Airport. The security company which manages and operates the facility said a 26-year-old man died on Sunday. Comes almost a year after a 37-year-old Albanian man died after attempting suicide in November 2023. The BBC has obtained data showing that, on average, young people are being left on a mental health waiting list in England for 315 days. The figure has more than doubled in the past 4 years. NHS England says that improving access to mental health services is a key priority. 50,000 tickets for the hugely anticipated Oasis reunion tour are being cancelled. The group's promoters have said that they will void tickets purchased on unauthorised sites, which have, that's a bit loud, which have broken the terms and conditions, and then relist them on Ticketmaster at face value. We thought we'd give you a little burst of Oasis there, just in case you didn't know what they sound like. Right, let's have a first look at the front pages of today's papers, see what's making the headlines on this Tuesday morning. The front page of The Telegraph, quoting the Chancellor Rachel Reeves ahead of tomorrow's budget. She has said that the money she'll give to the NHS won't be enough to undo 14 years of damage, her words, from the previous Conservative government. The budget is expected to include a number of tax hikes, as has been widely reported, including a possible rise in national insurance paid by employers.
The Daily Mirror also leading on the budget and what it could mean for the future of the NHS. It shows the Chancellor alongside Health Secretary Wes Streeting on a visit in South London yesterday. During the visit, Ms Reeves pledged to get the NHS, quote, back on its feet again.
Wes Streeting live on the programme in just over an hour from now. Away from the budget, The Guardian is reporting on a vote in Israel's parliament which will ban the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency from working in the country. Israel has accused UNRWA staff of involvement in the 7th of October attacks and diverting aid in Gaza. The ruling will see aid workers banned from the country inside the next 90 days.
And the picture that dominates the front page of the Times is protesters in the Georgian capital of Tbilisi. Tens of thousands of people gathered outside the country's parliament last night after the pro-Western president called for an annulment of Saturday's election, where the country's authoritarian party claimed victory.
A man's died at an immigration removal centre near Gatwick Airport. Serco, which manages Brook House, says the 26-year-old died on Sunday. Last year, a public inquiry found there was a toxic culture with detainees subjected to degrading treatment and the inappropriate use of force. Ahead of tomorrow's budget, council leaders across London are calling for extra help from the government to build more homes. It comes as new figures show spending on temporary accommodation has gone up across the capital by 68% over the last year. And there's warnings it's affecting councils' financial stability.
It's not just the human cost of homelessness. The cost to boroughs across London is huge. We are paying £4 million a day on temporary accommodation to house homeless families in London. And that's just an unsustainable cost for councils, and it's bringing councils to breaking point.
From today, London Fire Brigade will no longer respond to automatic fire alarms in many commercial buildings most of the day unless the fire is actually reported. The brigade said last year these made up 40% of all incidents they attended, but the majority turned out to be false alarms. It's to give crews more time to focus on real emergencies and fire prevention. The new policy won't apply to schools or residential buildings. An injured seal has been flown into a wildlife hospital in Essex for the first time. Rocky the seal was discovered exhausted and underweight at a harbour in Jersey. He travelled by private jet to Southend Airport on Saturday after being rescued by divers. He was then taken to South Essex Wildlife Hospital for treatment and is now recovering.
Now, a Remembrance Day memorial featuring poppies donated from around the world has gone on display in Skegness.
After appealing for people to create the flowers, the local branch of the Royal British Legion was inundated, receiving over 37,000 poppies, some sent from as far as Hong Kong and Canada.
Well, the women behind the campaign have been speaking to the BBC about the contributions.
It has been the most emotional journey ever.
We asked for poppies to be made because we had an idea we might have a little small display, and it just grew and grew, and we've ended up with 37,082. They've come from the Skegness community themselves, but thanks to social media, they've come from Spain, Sweden, Tasmania, Newfoundland, Bermuda, Hong Kong.
We've had primary school children, we've had the secondary school. The youngest was 2, the oldest was 98. The 98-year-old was knitting me a poppy a day.
What's been more incredible is the stories behind them and why people have done it. A lot of people needed some sort of community to be part of, and we've been having little notes put in the bags that they've donated, so there's not a day went by where one or other of us wasn't in tears. It's not just about the world wars, it's about the constant conflicts that we are involved in, from Falklands through to Iraq, Bosnia, all of those. There are a lot of younger veterans now, and they need to know that we remember them.
Thank you is 2 words that it doesn't cover it, but just thank you so much. Thank you for remembering the fallen.
It's really stunning, isn't it, the poppy display there in Skegness.
And lovely to see how many people are getting involved.
young girls at a dance class in July.
As police reveal more details about their investigation, the alleged attacker is also charged with a terror offence for possessing a study of the Al-Qaeda training manual.
Also tonight, the Chancellor will announce a pay rise for 3 million people in tomorrow's budget by increasing the national living wage.
Good news for low-paid workers as the government unveils an inflation-busting rise in the national living wage. But what will that mean for businesses and the government's pro-growth strategy?
A week to go in the US election. I'm in Arizona, one of the key swing states, which could help decide the presidency.
And the images which reveal the wonders of a forgotten city, centuries old and found by chance beneath dense jungle in Mexico.
On BBC London, from housing to hospitals, we look ahead to what tomorrow's budget could mean for Londoners, businesses and public services here in the capital.
Now there's a Labour government and a Labour mayor. What could that mean for housing and infrastructure in the capital?
Also ahead tonight, the family of Essex MP Sir David Amess, who was stabbed to death during a constituency surgery 3 years ago, say they still have unanswered questions. Plus, we meet the 27-year-old brain cancer patient with a message for others, Jessie's remarkable story of defying the odds. And getting into the spooky spirit, how one resident has gone all out and transformed his house for charity.